Welcome to The Tipping Point by Malcolm Gladwell, presented to you by Lily Marchak,
Raj Reddy.
Elon Buckman.
So, what is the tipping point? The tipping point is that magic moment when an idea, trend, or social behavior crosses a threshold, tips, and then spreads like wildfire. So, how does an idea tip? Gladwell outlines 3 laws that contribute to the tipping of an idea, phenomenon, or trend. These laws are the law of the few, the law of stickiness, and the power of context. Let's start with the law of the few. The law of the few is quite similar to the 80-20 principle, which says that a small majority of a group of people actually do the work. Gladwell outlines 3 different types of people in the law of the few, which are the connectors, the mavens, and the salesmen. Connectors take an idea and pass the idea to a larger group of people. A connector utilizes weak ties in order to spread this idea. Mavens, on the other hand, are people who collect knowledge and share it with those who are willing to listen. Never turn down advice from a maven. They're experts in many different fields. Lastly, the salesmen are those who have the natural ability to persuade and charm an individual.
After the law of the few, we have the law of stickiness. What makes an idea memorable or stand out? An idea has to stick to make an impression. In this day and age, we're bombarded by a large amount of information, so we have to pick and choose what sticks and what doesn't. For example, an average American sees at least 254 advertisements a day. Trends, fads, and ideas have to be notable enough to stick so they don't get lost in the large jungle of information that we have today.
Environments greatly impact the way an idea or trend spreads. Different conditions and circumstances make people act in unique and different ways. For example, how do you conduct yourself when you're at the law library versus being at the big house? There's definitely a difference. Some epidemics will spread like wildfire under certain situations, while others will crash and burn.
Let's take a quick break. Select one of the following examples or titles below and we'll explain it to you before continuing with our presentation.
Never Gonna Give You Up. Every computer user at some point or another has seen this music video play on their screen. Although it was a hit back in the 80s, the song is now more popularly known for being central to rickrolling. Rickrolling occurs when someone tricks a friend, coworker, etc. into clicking on a hyperlink that will send the victim to the video of Rick Astley's Never Gonna Give You Up. Started in 2007 by 4chan.com, rickrolling is now a popular trend that is known worldwide and used daily. But how did rickrolling become so popular? We can analyze the viral video's rise to its current status using Malcolm Gladwell's 3 laws. The law of the few. The website 4chan.com initially created rickrolling as a new way to prank internet users and followers of the website. Once 4chan's followers got rickrolled, they rickrolled their friends, who in turn did the same to their friends. As a result, the prank started spreading like wildfire. Eventually, YouTube picked up on the high trending nature of the video and rickrolled all YouTube users by linking their front page videos to the rickroll video on April Fool's Day in 2008. 4chan and YouTube acted as connectors and used their network ties to spread the fad from a small group to a global audience. The law of stickiness. Rickrolling is a humorous way to prank someone, and its harmless but still irritating nature made it stick in the minds of users and victims. Additionally, it has quirky 80s dance moves and has a memorable melody that anyone can recognize. Since the song was originally at the top of the charts in the 80s, rickrolling was more prone to stick in the minds of people. The power of context. Prior to the invention of rickrolling, duckrolling was the preferred internet prank. Duckrolling is essentially the same thing as rickrolling, but instead of Never Gonna Give You Up playing, a duck on wheels would just roll by on screen repeatedly. Duckrolling set an internet pranking precedent, which set the context for rickrolling. There was already an established structure on how to prank somebody, and the rickroll fit right in. Also, Family Guy, a TV show, did a parody of rickrolling on one of their episodes.
Peter, don't. They say if you watch that video, you die.
Yeah, that's a lot of baloney.
Never gonna give you up, never gonna let you down, never gonna run around and desert you, never gonna make you cry, never gonna say goodbye.
At the time of the parody, Family Guy was a highly viewed cult show with a large fan base, and the parody they did further pushed Rickrolling on an upward trend of popularity.
Do you remember Pokemon? Of course you do. It was a staple in the lives of most kids growing up in the mid to late 90s. Pokemon probably all blurs together at this point, unless you were a diehard fan, but to those who don't know, the video games came out first, and then merchandise like the TV program and Pokemon cards followed. The game was released in Japan in 1996, was a hit amongst Japanese children, and then was translated for English-speaking kids in 1998. It was hard to pry kids away from their Game Boys until the cards came out later the same year. Instead of staring at a screen, kids couldn't shut up about the latest cards they collected and wanted to brag to their friends. What caused the change? The law of the few. There were small groups of kids that were very loyal to the video games and television program. Pokemon's popularity is just kicking off, and a new card game is released. Loyal fans were obviously the first to hear about the release, so they start collecting any Pokemon they can get their hands on. Kids can't keep this fine to themselves, so they want to share their newest card collecting hobby with their friends, which, in turn, causes them to act as mavens. By promoting this card game through some friendly, childish advice, these kids really spread the fad. The law of stickiness. In the game, you have to capture all the Pokemon in order to become a Pokemon master. This established concept of the show and game already promotes kids to find, buy, and trade any cards they can get their hands on in order to become a Pokemon master. Not only was this sticky, but Pokemon had a really, really catchy slogan that I'm sure any of you can recite. You gotta catch 'em all, right? The only way to catch them all is to buy and trade more cards. This idea stuck and the fad perpetuated. The power of context. The idea of card trading games wasn't a new concept by any means. Trading baseball and basketball cards was already a popular activity amongst youth, so introducing a card game to these kids was pretty simple. They understood how card games worked, even if Pokemon had slightly different rules than previous card collections. Additionally, the Pokemon card game was cushioned by the TV program and video game already being released by the time they were introduced to American kids. Kids, especially the mavens, already appreciated Pokemon and accepted it, which made it much easier for the card game to spread as it did.
You've probably seen shutter shades either on the face of a frat boy in 2008 or sitting on Kanye West's nose in his 2007 music video Stronger. But how did these horizontally slitted glasses take off and become a trend? Shutter shades originated in the 1980s under the name Venetian blinders. These popular glasses made appearances in the music videos Glittering Prize by Simple Minds in 1982 and Obsession by Animotion in 1984. They weren't seen again until Kanye introduced them to the American pop culture scene in 2007. Let's go through how Gladwell's 3 laws apply. The law of the few. Elaine Mickley, a French designer, revived shutter shades by designing a pair especially for Kanye in 2007. In this case, Mickley is a maven. He has a broad knowledge of fashion and loves to share his ideas with others. Kanye is a connector. He's a popular rapper, has a large fan base, and is known for his trendy style. The law of stickiness. This should be pretty obvious. These glasses are dramatically different from any other conventional sunglasses. They come in loud colors and challenge the practicality of sunglasses since they do not block the sun, nor do they allow the wearer to see clearly. All of these factors make shutter shades super sticky, which has greatly contributed in their rapid tip. The power of context. Kanye was one of the most prominent music figures of the time when he reintroduced shutter shades into the American pop culture scene. Also, other 80s trends were reappearing in popular culture, such as oversized tops for women and members-only jackets for men. The context was right for an 80s fashion trend to reemerge, and Kanye's limit-pushing personality allowed shutter shades to tip in 2007.
So, what did we think of The Tipping Point? It was an easy read. Gladwell uses interesting examples, he's an excellent writer, and it nicely complements the SI 124 course in its discussion on the value of weak ties as a connector. Despite this, we have our criticisms. While the first section of the book is highly informative, the second section doesn't introduce any new ideas. Gladwell focuses on expanding his first few points, which causes the examples to quickly become tedious and overused. Additionally, we feel that only the law of the few is exclusive to a tipping point. The power of context and the law of stickiness are important components of any successful message or idea, so they didn't provide much proof for the tipping pattern that some trends follow. Other than that, it was quite an enjoyable read, and we would highly recommend that you read The Tipping Point. We hope you enjoyed this presentation. Now why don't you go make something tip?
We've known each other